Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the program. We're starting a little bit early this time because last month I started super late. So, welcome. So, it's not going to look, and I want to throw out a disclaimer about this. So, right now you are looking at Jupiter. You are looking at Jupiter and its 4 Galilean moons. Jupiter, of course, is the largest planet in the solar system. And the Galilean moons are some of the larger moons in the solar system as well. Now, full on disclaimer. It is humid. It is very warm. There are some cloud bands that are moving in just because guess what? It's July in the Northeast, especially July in the summer. And also, being right in the city, there's a lot of light pollution. So it's not going to look stupendous, but there you are. You are looking at the king of the planets, 385 million miles from Earth, in all of its beautiful glory, along with its 4 Galilean moons, which honestly I was not expecting to be able to get tonight because it's so humid out and there's just so much haze in the sky. So, pleasantly surprised. Thank you for joining me. It's kind of late. It is 10:24 p.m. on the East Coast. So if you guys are awake or if you aren't watching Hamilton for the 47th time, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Now, I do want to let you guys know I am going to lose it to a tree limb in maybe about 2-3 minutes. But then a few minutes after that, it should poke out from behind the tree limb. So later on, aside from Jupiter, I do fully expect to be able to get Saturn tonight as well. And just going to talk a little bit about Jupiter and Saturn, and because I can actually see Saturn right now, but it's behind a tree. So unfortunately, I have to wait. So we're just going to talk a little bit about Saturn, a little bit about Jupiter. To be honest, I'm not going to stay out too long tonight simply because it is very humid, and I am very concerned about dew and moisture getting into the scope. I actually came downstairs about a half hour early just to let the scope get acclimated to the temperature outside because, my apartment is air conditioned, outside is not. And that's a fun factoid for anybody who has telescope equipment. It's always good to let your telescope get acclimated to the outside if you are going to do any kind of stargazing. So you definitely want to do that. That's me just adjusting this because I'm starting to lose it to that tree, and I want you all to be able to see Jupiter's moons as well. Whoop. Jumping and jumping. All right. So try as I might, I really tried to resolve the image just a little bit more. Unfortunately, that just was not the case because it is, like I said, very humid out. Now, if you were looking through the scope, you can see the bands of Jupiter very, very clearly tonight, which was also surprising considering how humid it is. It's just hard to resolve on the phone. Unfortunately, I can't get a better picture than. Oh well, maybe actually, I zoomed in just a little bit. Anybody out there in Instagram land, if you can tell me whether or not you can see the bands of Jupiter, you let me know. I don't know if it's just my brain playing tricks on me, but I feel as though I can see it. So let me know if you can. There is also going to be a lot of vibration tonight because I had to get a little closer to the road, unfortunately. But I did want to still come out and try to put on a little bit of a show. Oh, good. All right, great. All right, so some of you can, some of you can't. I'm hoping that as Jupiter gets a little bit higher in the sky, you'll be able to make out those bands just a little bit more. It is passing by a tree right now. There's going to be a tree in front of me. So I'm going to lose it, but it should pass pretty quickly. So since we're on Jupiter right now. I wanted to start with that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Jupiter and, being the king of the planets. In recent news, or not so recent news, maybe about last year or so, it was dethroned for the king of the moons. It used to have the most moons in the solar system, but now that honorary title goes to Saturn, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So, Jupiter is still the largest planet in the solar system, and it has a very interesting structure in that it's the first gas giant, meaning that it's comprised mostly of gas. There is, a center, but it's a gas giant, and it is 11 times the size of Earth. So, for example, I believe in terms of the numbers, if Jupiter was a basketball, I believe, then Earth would be the size of a grape. So yeah, so if Jupiter were a basketball, Earth would be the size of a grape, and probably not even a very big grape. Just, maybe one of your small little red grapes. All right, so now I'm losing it to that tree. There it goes. So it'll just be a few minutes before it pops back into view. So if you wanted to fit Earths inside of Jupiter, you'd be able to fit 11 Earths. It's clear-ish. Is it clear right now? It's clear-ish. There are some clouds that are starting to move in, so I am going to try to do as much as I can within this time frame, but there are clouds that are moving in from the city. And then, of course, there's that tree that's in the way that's making it very fuzzy. And then also there's humidity, too. So it's not a great night, but, we're going to do our best. Sorry about that. So, orbital period, the time that it takes Jupiter to revolve around the sun, 12 years. So it takes 12 years for Jupiter to make an entire year, or 12 Earth years for Jupiter to make it around the sun. But an hour on Jupiter is only about 10 hours. Or rather a day, a day on Jupiter is only about 10 hours long. So during the winter months, if you had a very, very good view of Jupiter, like a completely clear view from start to finish, from the time that it rises to the time that it sets, and I say in winter because it gets darker earlier, you'd be able to see a full rotation of Jupiter in that time frame, in that, those 10 or so hours. You'd be able to see it from start to finish. What equipments do I use? I use a Celestron Nexstar SE 6-inch. And then I also have my iPhone, which is what I'm streaming with right now through Instagram. And I have the Celestron NextYZ cell phone mount. So that's what I use to stream and to take any astrophotography images that I have. It's really not as high tech as I'd like it to be, but it's still, it gets the job done. I also use a telrad to find objects rather than using the star pointer that the telescope comes with. I have a telrad for that. So we do have Jupiter for a little bit. Now it has 79 moons in total. 53 of those moons are named, and the others are waiting for confirmation and to be named. So the 4 Galilean moons, or the moons that Galileo spotted when he was making his observations of Jupiter, are Europa, Io, Ganymede, and Callisto. Now, unfortunately, I am terrible at naming which moons are in what order. So if you can see it on your screen right now, you should be able to see Jupiter and its 4 Galilean moons. Those are those 4 very tiny specks on the screen. Those are the 4 largest moons of Jupiter. And yes, you are seeing moons. Those 4 tiny dots in a row next to that large dot, or kind of in comparison, those are its 4 Galilean moons. For the life of me, I never remember which moon is what. But if you go to solarsystem.nasa.gov, they'll be able to give you a full breakdown of the moons and where they fall in that order. So now I have some cloud bands moving in, unfortunately. But I'm going to try to keep going for as long as I can. And simply because I do have those cloud bands moving in, I don't want to I don't want to lose Saturn or the little bit of Saturn that I have. So I am going to move over there really quickly. So you guys are going to go along for the ride with me. It's just going to be a few moments. Okay. I'm just going to put that right in the center there, and then I'm going to focus just a little bit more. Up, down, left, right. Okay. All right, so we're just going to focus a teensy bit more. Now, it's not a great image. I wish it were better. But if I zoom in just a little bit more, you should be able to get some band definition. It's not a lot, but you should be able to get just a tiny bit. Again, this always looks better in person. I wish we could do stargazing, on a more personal level, where you come up to the telescope and you look and you have that, that awe effect. But unfortunately, circumstances still being kind of precarious right now. I don't want to take that chance and have us all come out and do some stargazing and put people at risk, I just find it very irresponsible. So, anyway, getting back to Saturn. So Saturn is a little bit further out. It's the next gas giant, just after Jupiter. And its orbital period or rotation period around the sun is 29 Earth years. So it takes 29 Earth years to make it around the sun. Let's see if I can zoom out just a little bit more. So yeah, Saturn is definitely out right now. It's a little hard to get because of a few reasons. It's still very low on the horizon. There are some clouds that are passing near or in front of it. It's very humid. But this is as best as my phone can resolve it right now. Hopefully in a few weeks, or closer to September, it will be cool enough that you'll be able to get a little bit more detail. So the length of a day on Saturn. The length of a day on Saturn is just under 11 hours. So how we have our typical 24-hour periods. It would be 10 hours on Jupiter for a full day, 11 hours, just about, give or take, 15 minutes or so on Saturn for a full rotation day. And in terms of size, Saturn is 9 times the size of Earth, meaning you can fit 9 Earths inside of Saturn. And that is excluding the rings. That does not count the rings. That just counts the center. So now getting back to the whole comment I made about the moons. So Jupiter right now has 79 moons in total. Saturn recently dethroned Jupiter, and it has 82 moons in total. And 53 of those 82 are named. The rest are still, getting confirmation. And, they're picking out names as we speak. So that was actually something that was kind of fun to learn, is how Jupiter, as large as Jupiter is, it is no longer the largest planet to have the most moons, rather. So now another thing that I wanted to talk about, just because we are talking about Saturn and its moons, I did want to talk a little bit about Saturn's moon. Yeah, Saturn and Jupiter have beef. No. I did want to talk a little bit about Saturn's moon, Titan. Now, Titan is in the field of view. If you look down on your screen, you might be able to see a small flickering dot. It's very, very tiny. I wish I could zoom in on it. But do you see that flickering thing that's kind of diagonal to Saturn? That would be Saturn's moon, Titan. So the fun fact about Titan is we're going to Titan. We're going to Titan in another 15 years or so. So NASA's Dragonfly mission is set to launch in 2026. We will get to Titan by 2034. So in another 6 years, we're going to launch this, it's almost a helicopter probe, I guess you could call it, or a quadcopter, sort of like a drone. And we're sending it to Saturn's moon. And so this is going to be one of the first missions that we're basically taking something from Earth. We're not just sending it to a moon, but we're going to fly on a moon that is over, oh my goodness, how far is Saturn? Saturn is 835 million miles from Earth. So 835 million miles away, give or take a few miles for distance to Titan. We're going to send a probe, a flying probe, a helicopter, if you will, to Titan. And that is very exciting for a number of reasons, but most of all, we're flying on another planetary body, and I think that that's awesome. Now, of course, we're going to do this in a few more months or by next year with the Perseverance rover. The Perseverance rover will have a demo chopper inside of its belly called Ingenuity, and we will be flying a demo chopper on Mars. That is scheduled to launch at the end of the month, at the earliest would be July 30th, with a set date of arrival mid to late February. So that's something to look out for. But 2026, we're going to Saturn. We're sending a chopper. It's going to be great. And or rather, that's when we're launching. We're going to get there by 2034. So by 2034, mark your calendars, because I'm sure we're going to have a lot to learn about Titan. Now, it's such a shame that it's so humid and so hazy. I would like it to have a better image. I will wait for it to rise just a little bit more. Now that I have Jupiter back into view, I do want to swing back over that way and see if the view has improved any. So I'm going to take us back to Jupiter, just briefly. And let's see if the view has improved. So, Titan actually has an atmosphere. Titan is one of the few moons in our solar system that has an atmosphere. That's what makes it so unique, and that's why we want to explore it. So let's see here. Now I'm doing my best to bring this into the center here, but there you are. We're back at Jupiter. And it's 4 Galilean moons. We've passed that tree, that pesky tree. Unfortunately, it's still very, very hazy out. So we can't get a lot of detail on Jupiter. But under normal circumstances, you should be able to see the bands of Jupiter. And on a really good, clear night, you should be able to see the red spot through a telescope. Now, I personally use the Celestron Nexstar 6 SE. I was able to catch Jupiter's Great Red Spot, that massive storm on Jupiter. I was able to catch it once when it was incredibly clear out and there was almost zero humidity. So if you are able to just view it online, that's great too. But if you can, hopefully by next year, get out to an event when it's safe to, to be close to people again. I definitely encourage you to check out any kind of astronomy club in your neighborhood. If you're in New York City, Amateur Astronomers Association or AAA.org on Instagram. They do a ton of free events where you can just kind of come up to a telescope and look through. That has all, of course, been suspended this year, but as soon as we are able to get back out, they'll have tons of events for people to just come and take part of. So I wish I could resolve this just a little bit more so that you could see the bands. Unfortunately, I cannot, because every time I try to bring in that image, it just gets a little bit more washed out. So I'm not going to mess with it too much. Yeah, no bands. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to get them with the cell phone. But yes, those are those Jupiter's moons? Yes, they are. It's 4 largest. It's 4 Galilean moons. First spotted by Galileo in, I believe, 1610. And he thought they were stars, and then he realized that they weren't. So as Saturn climbs up just a little bit, I'm gonna let that climb up just a little bit more. So we'll just stay on Jupiter for now, because Saturn is about to hit that same tree that Jupiter did. So I'm just gonna let it pass by, and then we'll hop on back, and hopefully, because it's a little bit higher in the sky and it's no longer like on that horizon, hopefully the image will be a little bit better resolved. So if anybody is just joining us, we are looking at Jupiter. It is not a very good image of Jupiter because it is very humid. There's it's hazy in the sky as well, so there's some high atmosphere clouds. But if you happen to be on the East Coast right now, it's 10:24 p.m. or 10:24. Wow, 10:44 p.m. You can see Jupiter if you head outside. Depending on where you are, it may or may not be very cloudy. I'm in Queens personally, so I'm in a northwest Queens, so it's not too bad. There's just a lot of haze and humidity. But if you're outside and you take a look south facing, just look up and you should see a very bright object in the night sky. That's Jupiter. And then right behind it, almost kind of diagonal going left, is kind of an orange fuzzy a bright object. That's Saturn. So they're right next to each other right now, and they have been for a few months now. It's just been that they've been coming up at maybe 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning. Now it's a little bit earlier in the evening to catch them. I am not on a hilltop. I am actually more or less in the swamp. So I am in College Point in Queens. And for all intents and purposes, it's kind of the swamp. It's a very low land, marsh type of area. We're pretty much at sea level, and some parts of College Point, I believe, are below sea level just by a few feet. So I am not on a hilltop at all. I very much wish I was. But this just goes to show you that you can get these images and resolve these images from almost anywhere in the 5 boroughs if you know where to look. I feel like the only exception to that rule might be Manhattan, just because it's so bright. But some of the brighter objects like Jupiter, you should be able to spot depending on where you are. Times Square and Herald Square, of course, are not going to be good examples. But if you are near Bryant Park or in Bryant Park, you might be able to see Jupiter. Personally, I've never tried it, but you might be able to see Jupiter just because it's such a bright night sky object. You certainly can see Jupiter from Carl Schurz Park on 86th and East End, sort of near Gracie Mansion. You would definitely, some of the best views in Manhattan, I would say, go to Carl Schurz Park. If you wanted to just do any kind of just observing, if you have a telescope, if you have binoculars, if you wanted to just be out there naked eye, everything rises above Queens, and that's where you're facing. So that's the perfect location to do any kind of stargazing at all, is Carl Schurz Park. On the flip side of that, of course, Inwood Park is also very dark and very good for stargazing. So what lens am I using? Well, I'm using the Celestron Nexstar 6 SE. The eyepiece that I'm using right now is a 17 millimeter eyepiece. Now, in addition to being bad at remembering which of Jupiter's moons is what in terms of order, I'm also bad at remembering how to calculate magnification. So I am using a 6-inch telescope with a 17 millimeter eyepiece. Just for reference. And I have also cheated because Instagram Live allows you to zoom in on the photo or on the image on your screen, so I can kind of get some of that as well just from pinching and zooming on the phone. Comet Neowise. Yes, everybody is talking about Comet Neowise. Comet Neowise is a big deal because we've had a few comets that were headed this way over the last few years, and some of them either weren't that great or they broke up as they were getting close to the sun, so we couldn't really get it. But Neowise is going strong, and it will be visible before sunrise, starting at 4 a.m., depending on where you are. If you're facing northeast, you should be able to see it. Now, a good way to spot it, a good way to look for Neowise is to look for the star Capella. If you can find the star Capella, Neowise is just south of that, like just a little bit lower than that, diagonal. I did post on my Instagram a small image, like of a sky map of kind of a how-to for looking for it. You should be able to spot it with a pair of binoculars. That's all you really need. Sorry, that was a bus. All you really need is a pair of binoculars. If you have a telescope, that's great, but a pair of binoculars should be just fine for what you need. It will be visible until I believe July 22nd or 23rd, but after July 16th, it's going to be visible after sunset. So after July 16th, you'll be able to spot it a little bit better after sundown, facing northwest. So if you can get out to a park that faces northwest where you don't really have a lot of building obstruction, and sundown is just after 9 p.m. or so, you should be able to spot it with no problem with a pair of binoculars. Do the planets rotate in the same direction as Earth? Do you mean, do they all rotate counterclockwise? If so, the answer to that is yes, with the exception of Venus. Venus is the only one who doesn't rotate in the same direction as everybody else. So, yes, Comet Neowise. I'm very excited. I've been trying to get this stupid comet, or I've been trying to get to go look at this stupid comet for the last week and a half, maybe. But the weather has just been so terrible, for starters. And also, 4 in the morning is just not really, it's not a thing that I want to even encounter. 4 in the morning, I am asleep. Sleep is as much as I enjoy staying out late to do stargazing and, you know, look at the cosmos, I also enjoy sleep just slightly more. So I have yet to go out and experience it for myself. I hope to be able to do that by mid next week or late next week, when it becomes more of a sunset object and not a sunrise object. So weather permitting, fingers crossed. Sorry, I have a lot to say about chasing this comet, just because I'm very excited and I want to see it. And it's been a few years since I've been able to see a comet. So yeah, so Saturn is almost it's almost past that tree. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Nice, that's awesome. Fansler, Carolyn Fansler, if you don't mind me asking, whereabouts are you? Just a general. Like, are you in New York City? Are you upstate? Are you in Long Island? Yeah, I'm looking forward to catching this comet. I really want to catch this comet. And it's going to be visible for at least another week and a week and a half or so. If you can, if the weather's good, I definitely encourage anybody that has any kind of equipment to just go out and try to look at it from yourself. Look at it for yourself. Hey, Rhode Island, what's going on? I hope your weather is better than ours. Yeah, it's. I really, really want to get out and see this comet. Yes, and Venus is also a very nice morning sky object too. So, if you want to do the marathon, the all-nighter, starting around let's say 11 p.m. So at 11 p.m. because it'll be nice and high in the sky. You'll be able to get Jupiter and Saturn with no problem. And so one more time, if anybody's looking for Jupiter, you're just going to, you should be able to look up kind of southeast, and you should be able to see it in the night sky. It's a very, very bright, and as long as it's, clear enough that you can see one or two objects, like one or two stars, you'll definitely be able to pick out Jupiter. So southeast, it's very bright, white, steady, and of course, I like to tell people all the time, if you're not sure what you're looking at when you're looking up, twinkle, twinkle, little star. So if it twinkles, you are looking at a star. If it is a steady light, you are looking at a planet. So if you're looking up and out right now, kind of southeast, you should be able to see Jupiter, and then maybe 1 or 2 thumbs behind it, you'll be able to see Saturn. And Saturn kind of has almost an orange yellow hue to it. Oh, hot and muggy. Yeah, it's pretty humid here in New York City too. I am concerned slightly about the telescope. I'm keeping an eye on it just in case it starts to sweat. If it starts to sweat, I will have to shut down and run it back inside. Yes, so the Sky Portal app is great. I don't use it as much as I should, just because I feel I am married to Sky Safari because I've used Sky Safari for so many years. But they're all great. Sky Safari, Sky Portal, Stellarium, Starwalk, they're all very good apps and very accurate too. So if anybody is looking for advice about different apps to use, those are probably, I would call those my top 4. So now going back to your planetary smorgasbord, if you are looking right now, you should be able to see Jupiter and Saturn. In a couple of hours, you'll be able to see Mars. Now, Mars, even though Mars is the closest planet to us aside from Venus, it's a smaller planet. So it's not, the images that you would see in a telescope may not look as great as, let's say, if you were looking at them, maybe through a 12-inch telescope, then you would get some pretty spectacular views. But if you're looking at them through maybe something small, like a 3-inch telescope, even though it's very close to us, it's not going to be as large or as vivid as Jupiter. But Mars is visible right now. And that would come up around, I want to say around 2 or 3 a.m. You should be able to see Mars. And by then, Jupiter will be nice and high in the sky, facing south, and Saturn will be right behind it. And then kind of going back, like moving east, you'll be able to pick up Mars. And then right behind that will be Venus in the morning. And Venus is also very, very bright. And it's sort of the similar effect to Jupiter. Even though Venus is smaller, it's bright because it has all of those greenhouse gases that engulf the planet, so that sunlight reflects really well. You'll be able to see Venus in the morning, and then of course you'll be able to see a Comet Neowise, right? Just kind of under the star Capella. So if you aren't working on Sunday, or you have no previous obligations, and you have binoculars, or if you just happen to be in an area that's relatively clear and not suffering from this humid, muggy, gross weather that we're having right now, which I hope, the worst of it is over, tonight is probably going to be a good night to catch all of those objects over the course of a few hours. So that's just something that you could maybe do, or if you want to save it for another night that is clear by you, you'll be able to catch all of those objects over the next week and a half or so. Eventually, Comet Neowise will go, but you'll still be able to see Jupiter and Saturn and Mars and Venus. So let's see if we can swing on back to Saturn, and hopefully that picture has resolved just a little bit better. So we're going to say goodbye to Jupiter for now, and it's 4 Galilean moons, which are actually presenting a little bit better now that it's higher in the sky. So we're going to say goodbye for now, and then we're going to swing on back. And of course, I like to say you guys are coming along for the ride. Let me just bring it into the center here. Whoop. And then we're going to zoom in just a little bit and see if we can resolve that just a teensy bit more. So it does look slightly better only because we have cleared that horizon. And now if you're looking at your screen, you should be able to make out that definition. It's very small, but you should be able to make out that definition between the center of the planet and the rings. Oh, yes, I'm sure. I'm sure ISS will be over New York City or over the East Coast real soon. I don't have an exact time date for ISS, but you can use the ISS website. It's called Spot the Station, and they will give you real-time updates based on your location. So you would just plug in your zip code or your city, and you can sign up for text alerts as well, but it will also tell you, it'll tell you exactly when it's rising, and it will give you a list of the best times to view it. So if, for example, it's coming up on, let's say, for example, it's coming up tomorrow night, but it's only 17 degrees above the horizon, it's not going to be a very good, or impressive image. But if it's coming up again, maybe Tuesday night, and it's about 47 degrees above the horizon, you'll be able to see it better. So there you go. So ISS at 5:18 a.m. in Harrisburg, PA. So Harrisburg, PA, if you are up at 5:18 in the morning, you can expect to see the International Space Station passing above. You might have to contend a little bit with the sun, but the higher it gets in the horizon, the brighter it starts to look. You'll be able to spot it with no problem. Now, what can I expect to see with a 70 millimeter telescope at Mars? I'm going to be completely honest with you, not a lot. Just because Mars is a small planet, even though it is closer to us than Jupiter or Saturn, Mars is a very small planet, and unless you are in very, very dark sky, a 70 millimeter telescope may not give you a lot of detail. You'll be able to see it, but you won't be able to see the ice caps, for example, because Mars does have ice caps. You won't really be able to make out that definition of some of the geological definition on the surface, just because a 70 millimeter is a little bit smaller. Now, I personally I haven't tried yet with my 6-inch telescope, just because my 6-inch telescope is still very new. But I hope in maybe the coming months to try as the weather gets a little bit colder. I don't expect to really resolve that image. I don't expect to resolve that image very well, but I'm going to try anyway. For Mars, I would probably recommend something maybe 10 inches or more, just in terms of being able to bring in, that excessive light to resolve that image. A 70 millimeter might be tricky. So yes, if you ever want to know where the International Space Station is, Spot the Station is the name of the website, and it's exactly how it sounds, Spot the Station, and they'll be able to give you a time and date for your location about when the ISS is rising. And the ISS, you'll know when you see it, because it almost sort of looks like a plane, but it isn't. It moves faster than a plane. And the higher it gets in terms of the horizon, the higher, like if it's going directly above your head, it's going to get brighter. And then as it starts to cross, overhead and kind of set, that's when it'll start to get darker. You'll be able to spot the ISS fairly easy, especially if it's rising anything more than 36 degrees. Also, of course, if weather conditions are good, because that's a huge part of it, right? I really wish I could resolve this image of Saturn better. Unfortunately, I cannot. It is just not. It is not focusing as well as I want it to. And I don't know how much of that is the haze, and how much of that is just the phone and Instagram Live. I'm hoping to one day do this with a camera that I can actually attach to this telescope, and then do the stream on possibly YouTube, because I know if I have a camera plugged directly in and I'm not using the phone, the resolution will be a little bit better. But that's sometime down the line because that's an investment. So now I just want to go one more time back to Jupiter because I am going to lose it again to another tree. The perks of living, the perks of living in the city. So we'll go back to Jupiter just for a few moments because this tree is a big one, and once I lose it, it's gone. It's gone for at least an hour. And then also I think by then Instagram will probably kick me out. So, because I believe the streams are only good for an hour. So if anybody is just seeing this image for the first time, that is Jupiter and its Galilean moons. Of course, those moons, we call them the Galilean moons because Galileo first noticed them in 1610 and he thought they were stars. And it turns out he was wrong, but then he also set out to find out what they actually were. And of course, this was still back when we believed the sun was not the center of the solar system, that the Earth was the center of the solar system. And of course, we now know that, we have a heliocentric solar system, and we are not geocentric. Is there a starter telescope I would recommend? I get asked this a lot, and I always recommend a Dobsonian telescope to start with. Specifically, I recommend getting an Orion anywhere between a 6 or an 8 inch, depending on what kind of space you have in your home, just because they are pretty inexpensive as far as telescopes go. Anywhere between $300 and maybe $300 to $350. So they're pretty inexpensive as far as telescopes go. They have a 6 or an 8 inch telescope will have a very large mirror bringing in more light, allowing you to, sorry. 1 second, folks. It's going to get just a little bit loud. Allowing you to bring in more light. And you'll be able to get definition for craters on the moon. You'll be able to see the bands of Jupiter. You'll be able to see Jupiter's great red spot. You will be able to see the rings of Saturn. And it moves. It's very simple. It's up, down, left, right. Sits on a lazy Susan. So I always recommend getting a Dobsonian telescope as a starter scope, just because it's a little bit no frills, but what you get in terms of the quality for the size of a 6 or an 8 inch, it's you can't compare. I had a Dobsonian telescope. I had a 4.5 inch, and it was a great starter scope for me. I now use go-to scopes, but I've also been doing this for about 8 years. And so I, just for convenience sake, I do use a go-to, but I also miss my Dobsonian telescope, and I want to get another one soon. Also, it's not just about the telescope. It's also about learning the night sky. So different apps can help, but if you wanted to get a planisphere or a sky map for, the northern or southern hemisphere, depending on where you are, that's also incredibly helpful because it's not enough to have good equipment. You have to also know where you're driving. Dobsonian, so D-O-B, B as in boy, and then you spelled the rest right. Sonian, yeah. So it's a Dobsonian telescope. And telescopes.com is the best place to pick one up. But yes, so it's very important not just to have the right equipment, but also to know where you're going with it, right? Very similar to, driving and GPS. You want the GPS so you know exactly where you're going. I always recommend getting, downloading, different star apps. Or if you want to kick it old school and have a paper map, that's also very good too. A good time to start observing, like if you wanted to really start learning the night sky, I always recommend doing it in the fall because that's when Orion is up. And Orion is a very, there you go, that's how you spell it, Dobsonian. Orion is a very easy to spot constellation just based off of its hourglass shape. And so if you know where you are in terms of looking at the night sky, if you can see that asterism of Orion's belt and you can see the hourglass shape of Orion, then you can kind of figure out where you are from there with a sky map or an app on your phone, sort of like the Big Dipper. If you're out and you see the Big Dipper, if you see that asterism, depending on where you are, okay, well, I can find the star Arcturus because of the mnemonic of, arc to Arcturus and speed onto Spica. That's something I actually talked about last month in terms of asterisms. But those are the two things that I would absolutely recommend if you wanted to get into stargazing. A good 6-inch or 8-inch Dobsonian telescope, depending on the space that you have in your home, because they are a little bit large, and also a good sky map. Oh, my apologies. I'm taking a little sip of water. It is still very warm out. So I just wanted to stay on Jupiter for a few more moments because there is a very, very big tree that I will lose it to in probably another 5 minutes or so. And then I'm going to go on back to Saturn, and we'll talk just a little bit about Saturn. And then I believe by then Instagram will kick me off because of their 1-hour rule. Which is fine. It's a little humid out, and I don't want the telescope to get any moisture trapped inside. So I hope everybody has been enjoying their summer so far. I know it's been kind of difficult to plan activities, but I hope that everyone's been safe and healthy, and in the coming weeks we might start to feel like we're getting back to normal. So if you are just joining, that is Jupiter and its 4 largest moons, its 4 Galilean moons, and in a few moments we will swing on over to Saturn. And it's sort of hard to spot on the live feed, but Saturn's moon Titan is visible right now. I'm going to try to resolve it on the phone, but I don't know how successful I'll be. But we'll give it a try anyway. If you ever wanted to learn more about Jupiter, of course, solarsystem.nasa.gov is a great website to, of course, join, and another to look at. And also NASA's probe Juno is still orbiting Jupiter as well, and the images that are resolved from Juno are just chef kiss. They're absolutely beautiful. So I encourage you to look up NASA's Juno mission and the solar system, NASA solar system website, which is solarsystem.nasa.gov, for all your solar system needs, and just to learn a little bit more about our inner solar system, our outer solar system, the Kuiper belt, the Oort cloud, and just anything beyond. The telescope is tracking much better. I had to mess with it, and I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Bart, who was very patient with me as I tried to fix it a few weeks ago. But yes, the telescope is tracking better now than it was. All right, so it's starting to get a little fuzzy, and that's because it's between that. It's a couple leaves on the tree. So I'm going to jump on over to Saturn. We're going to go back. All right, so let me just bring that in the center there. A 7-star constellation in the southwest sky. That 7 stars? It could be Spica, but Spica, I believe, has 15 stars. In terms of magnitude, I think maybe 7 of those 15 might be brightest. But I'm not quite sure. Southwest, huh? No, it's not. It wouldn't be Leo. That's a good question. I can certainly figure it out. Let's see here. So, 7 stars, southwest sky. It might. So it could be a couple of things. Depending on what you're looking at. Is there any object? Is there any object in there that stands out the most, like a star? And could you tell me what color it is? Because if the star that sticks out the most is red, then you're probably looking at Scorpius, which is, and that red star is Antares, or the heart of the scorpion is what it's sometimes called. If you're looking a little bit more west to that, that might be Spica. So that's in the Virgo constellation. So it really depends on what objects you're picking out from that constellation, because there are a few out right now. Ooh, it's so hard to resolve this image of Saturn. It's a lot of it's hard for a few reasons, but most important is because it is very warm out. It's very humid, so there's a lot of moisture in the air. You know, the vibration of the road can also affect like visibility too. I'm gonna try to bring that down just a little bit more for you guys. Whoop, I lost it. Oh no. There we go. Sagittarius. How many stars are in Sagittarius? Ooh, it's getting a little breezy. And I felt a drop. Uh-oh. Okay, I don't see any clouds. But I did feel a drop, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit. Sorry. Sagittarius. I felt another drop. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Sagittarius. I'm not sure Sagittarius is up right now. I'm looking for it, and I don't quite see it in the sky. Or rather, I'm looking on a sky map, and I believe it's still too early in the evening for Sagittarius to be out. Let's see here. Okay, so Sagittarius, my apologies. Sagittarius is actually visible right now next to Jupiter and Saturn. A little bit more than 7 stars, but some of the brighter stars you might be seeing. Oh, lost Saturn. Let's pull it back into view. Ooh. I think I might have actually bumped the telescope on accident. I felt a drop, and I'm pretty sure it just came from the tree that I'm under. But I felt a drop, and I got a little nervous because electronics and water don't mix, of course. So now it's very hard to make out, of course, but if you see Saturn, you might be able to see some of that definition between the center of the planet and the ring, and diagonal on the section of Saturn that's kind of facing downward. You should almost see a small flickering item. Again, it's a little hard to make out, but if you can see that small flickering dot, that is Saturn's moon Titan. Now, of course, I explained a little bit earlier that NASA is sending its Dragonfly mission to Titan. We are set to launch by 2026, I believe, and by 2034 is when we will arrive. And it's exciting just because we are sent. It's going to be a helicopter or a chopper, a quadcopter, sort of like a drone, that we are sending to Saturn, to Saturn's moon Titan, rather. I didn't point this out before, but Titan, Saturn's moon, does have an atmosphere, which makes it incredibly exciting to visit. And they're going to do all sorts of tests just on that one object. It's very exciting, but not. It's as exciting as the Mars Perseverance rover launching at the end of this month. It's set to launch, of course, on July 30th with an arrival date of mid-February next year. Inside the belly of Perseverance is going to be a demo chopper called Ingenuity. And so we're going to have a small, very, very small, lightweight helicopter that can go in distances of, I believe, 20 feet or so, floating around on Mars. So that's actually something that's very exciting and something to look forward to next year. I'm so sorry. It's floating out of view here a lot. It's kind of fighting with me. But so that's Saturn, that flickering, very small object, diagonal just under it is Titan, and that is where we're set to go, in a few years. Pending delays, as long as there are, of course, no delays to the mission. Knock on wood. All right, so it is about 11:19 p.m. and I am going to head inside because there are some water droplets shaking off of the tree due to the wind. But I do want to thank everybody who joined me tonight. I will schedule another event in the coming weeks. Hopefully, if you all are able to catch Comet Neowise, during the sunrise hours starting around 4 a.m., you should be able to catch that for a few more days. And if you aren't able to catch it in a few more days, it's going to become a sunset object. So starting around July 16th, you should be able to see it in the northwest just after sundown. So if you're looking northwest and it's just after 9 p.m. or so, be sure to look for Comet Neowise. It's going to be under the Big Dipper, more or less. And of course, stay healthy, stay dry, stay cool, because it's summer. And just keep looking up, keep washing your hands, keep that 6 feet, and, be kind to one another. Oh, yeah. I was supposed to say in the meantime and in between time, be good to one another. Take care.